once more I'm in front of you. In this lecture, I'll be talking about this is going to be my eighth lecture on cultural studies. And today I am present with Paul Wills, a sociologist, one who has contributed a lot, in the study of cultural studies, in the field of cultural studies. Dear friends, I have always talked in the series of this cultural studies for the students of NET and GRF, and in almost every lecture, I have been defining and giving the definition of what culture is, or how we can understand cultural studies, because it's a new topic, and most of the students across India have some problem in understanding like what cultural studies actually is. In this video, I'll be talking about simply about one book of this writer and his contribution. Before I start regarding Paul Wills, I will be reading out, a quotation from his book. The name of the book is Learning to Labor: How Working Class Kids Get Working Class Jobs. The book was published in 1977. Culture is not artifice. Cul- culture is Culture is not artifice and manners, the preserve of Sunday best, rainy afternoons, and concert halls. It is the very material of our daily lives, the bricks and mortar of our most commonplace understanding. This is the definition of culture. That culture does not mean when we understand that when we are in best of our dress, or when we are going to cinema, or we are going to malls, or in a marriage. Culture means the day-to-day life, what we are living. So Paul Wills, with this statement, you can understand like what is the contribution of Paul Wills. He's best known for ethnographic studies of working class youth culture. So ethnography, I would like to explain here that what is ethnography, before my students started dealing with this particular writer, that it is a sociology term. It talks about the account of social life and culture in a particular social system based on uh, multiple detailed observations of what people actually do in the social settings being observed. So you can understand with this statement that what actually people are doing, to understand, like, suppose these days we are not going out, we are quarantined, everybody, because of this lockdown, and then we see that what we wear. Like suppose I'm talking to you right now, that you can see me wearing this shirt, but actually most of the time you can find me in my vest or in my t-shirt. So it means what we are inside without being observed is the main thing. And ethnographical studies, talk about these situations and conditions and places, where the real definition of culture can be understood. Uh, Paul Wills is a prominent member of the celebrated Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. He was the joint founding editor of journal Ethnography. Ethnography is the name of a journal in the field of sociology. So we should all understand that this may appear as a question in exam. Uh, Ethnographical studies also study qualitative as well as quantitative research methods on specific groups like gangs. Gangs mean to say like how people behave. I would like to give you one example, that when we see that in Crime Patrol, or say any other serial where we see that a common boy, a school going boy, have behaved in a particular manner, or say committed some crime, so it means something was wrong, with this family or some family background, or there must have been something wrong in the school. It means to understand the crime, one has to understand the culture around him. So when we see people, standing somewhere in the street, I would like to give you one more example. There was a film few days back of this actor Khurana and Badhai Ho Badhai. In that movie, that you all know that this movie is about aged people couple, who expect a child, whose two sons are already grown up. In that movie, you have seen that when the hero of the film, who is a young boy and about to marry, is somewhere standing, near a panwala's shop, and there they're talking about, different kind of things. There they talk about the homosexuality, or importance of one of the boys also. So that group, when in an informal condition, when they are talking, that means the director wants to show that from there we can capture the culture. So sometimes students may ask, like, in art movies, which are not very big hits most of the time in India, and offbeat cinema, we see sometimes, they show these kind of scenes, where most of the students don't understand the importance of these scenes. But actually, through these scenes, these directors, they want to show to us the exact meaning, or what is happening in the cauldron of society, what is the real face of society. So Paul Wills is famous, to know culture from that point of view. And I think he has delved deep in one more thing, and that is the school going kids, or the adolescent ages boys, what kind of abusing words they use, what kind of language they use. These things are important, to understand, what culture of that particular society is. So Learning to Labor, that book I recently talked about, shows ethnographic field works of 12 working class British male students. Now I would also like to throw some light on this, that the students, suppose there are some students going in a public school, and some students of teenage are going in a say some municipal kind of a school. You all know that somewhere the change in the behavior will always be found, and the writer is responsible for studying 12 students of a teenage from the working class life in England, particularly London based. The book is in two parts. In the first part, he has talked about the behavior of the lads in racist society, and he has also studied how much patriarchal attitude they show. You have most of the time noticed that the kind of slang, or say abusive words, are used by youngsters. What is Parents never ask their kids to speak an abusive language. It means the boy is learning this language from somewhere, or the basic knowledge about sex is also not imparted in the family. It means the boy is learning all these things from somewhere, from his friend circle. So the writer has shown all these things in this study, Paul Wills, that from where he has got the patriarchy. Recently, being free, I have been watching one or two serials these days, and I saw that there was a boy, and that boy is studying in a school, and he murders his mother. The reason comes to light during the serial, that the boy was unable to digest that his mother has some relationship with some boy, and father works outside the town somewhere. So what happens, that when these kind of patriarchal attitudes, where mother is also considered a kind of commodity, and a boy goes up to the extent of murdering that woman, his mother, by considering that she cannot have her own wishes, whether marital or extramarital. So the point I want to make clear is that whatever the basic instincts keep apart, we see that we learn something when we go into the groups around. And the writer has studied the 12 boys from the working class, and then he has shown that from where the attitude of different kinds come to the common boys of that age. And the writer has also shown some light on ideology. Wills draws upon, for ideology, you have to watch some of my other videos which I have made for this cultural studies. Wills draws upon the theory of Louis Althusser and Antonio Gramsci. Those who are very serious students, they should listen to. I have released 3 audios. One is on Antonio Gramsci. Friends, Gramsci has propounded the theory of hegemony, but you should not prepare only for hegemony. You should also know that when he was incarcerated in jail, he wrote certain important books, in the code language. And when later on, the diary was decoded, and there the writer has given his understanding of the power, the way power works. So the whole study of Paul Wills is something to do with the concept of ideology which is propounded by the Marxist Louis Althusser and the Marxist Antonio Gramsci. And he argues in this book that schools are also complicit in social production as a state institutions for ideology. What I want to say here, I would like to elaborate, his statement that political parties or the people who are in government, they try to propound their theories of ideology. So on one hand, we can say that ideology is coming from the political parties, but then students or boys of say 19 or 20 years of age, from where they are getting this ideology kind of thing. It means somewhere schools are also because in schools the grown-up teachers are coming to teach them, and they don't come neutrally. They come to schools with their own beliefs, and those beliefs can be, for example, I would like to elaborate it. Like suppose I'm a teacher and I am in support of BJP, or say there is another friend of mine, he's in support of Congress. And when both of the teachers go there in schools and teach, they will be somewhere be affected by their respective ideologies while they are talking to students, and somewhere they are serving their ideologies directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously to the students. So that is why schools are also working to propagate the concept of ideology. The book is written in informal style. The book is very creative, and the book is talking about counter school culture. Book Learning to Labor. The result of this book is that working class has potential to subvert the authority. Now, throughout the book, the writer has talked about ideology, but he has also concluded at the end that we cannot say exactly that ideology is consumed by the working class people as such given to them. In fact, to the contrary, they produce a counterculture. Counterculture, is the term given by him, where he wants to convey a message that they are not the passive receivers. Like, for example, recently our honorable Prime Minister declared a lockdown of 21 days. And that working class people were also requested, he requested the whole nation that you should be there where you are right now. But you saw a horrible scene from all the states, that the working class people, they did not hear what Modi ji was saying. What is the reason? This is a clear-cut example of Paul Wills, that whatever the ideology, here it is nothing to do with ideology, but it is something to do with a government order. But poor class people will automatically be listening to their own needs, their own understanding, and their own familial and social and economic conditions, and not to anybody else. It means it is futile to say that working class people or the poor are puppets and they can be channelized by the ideology. So this way, this book is very important in cultural studies from counterculture point of view. Now, to my students who are first time watching me, I would like to ask them to kindly subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon. And now I will be reading one important quotation from this writer. What we hear, so that this way actually it will make you clear the concept of culture, what culture is actually. Writer says that what we hear, what we wear, what we watch, what we eat, how we see ourselves in relation to others, the function of everyday activities such as cooking, shopping, all these have attracted the interest of cultural studies. And that Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, which is a very important question that may appear in your exam, CCCS, has established the considerations of popular culture from the mass media to sports to dance crazes on an academic and intellectual agenda from which it had been excluded. It means in cultural studies, we now see like what kind of dance people like, what kind of sports people want to see, what kind of channel, what kind of academic career people want to speak. Say, for example, suppose have you ever come across that a boy has chosen decided for this cooking kind of course, not cooking actually, home science. You have seen mostly girls opt for this. Suppose you see that there is a boy in your colony and he has opted for home science, people will laugh at him. It means somewhere the mindset is decided by the things around us, the gender roles. So earlier these things were not studied, but even now the choice of subject, the cracking of a joke, the color of a dress, all these things come under the whole gamut of or the circle of cultural studies. It is one of the fundamental paradoxes of our social life that when we are at our most natural, our most everyday, we are also at our most cultural. Doesn't it seem a bit paradoxical that when we are most natural, there we are most cultural? So it this way, this statement counterattacks, the statements propounded by T.S. Eliot, or say all the English, or say American critics, who used to say that cultural means a well-dressed person and one who is behaving very properly, outside his house. So that when we are in roles that look the most obvious and given, we are actually in roles that are constructed. If I am giving the same lecture somewhere in a university with my tie, with my suit, I am a constructed copy of uh, a professor. I'm not the original one. If I know something and suppose people want to listen to me, I can go in my pajamas and in my kurta. So that means, and if suppose people accept me there also, and suppose I don't require anything, and there also I teach, as you all know that India is well cherished to become the Vishwa Guru in the coming time, and I think that during this lockdown period also, suppose we maintain the importance of work, which I think many of the companies have started, believing in that. You will find that if we really value and understand the value of culture, we would allow people to work from home. We will allow people to accept what they are. So cultural studies says that the most obvious of our shapes, we are actually in roles that are constructed. If we are not against if we are outside our houses, there we are mostly in the constructed roles. You can understand this language when we are claiming that we are the most learned one, and we are far from the inevitable. This is the statement from Paul Wills. So somewhere focus of cultural studies is on our everyday lives, that how our everyday lives are constructed and how culture forms its subject. Culture forms its subject is the last phrase I would like to elaborate in this small video, that you can understand culture if you really understand that the way people are in the most. Suppose somebody is having a stroll on his terrace. These days you can see people, you can see an uncle ji in a lungi and in a banyan, and it means and suppose he's working, or say he's brooming. I have uploaded a photograph of mine in the starting days of this lockdown when I'm sweeping my rooftop, and I've seen that many famous professors who are my friends on Facebook, even they praised it. They never said anything. It means we Indians fall in that category. I would also like to say that when we read anything about the Western writers, kindly don't associate it with you and we, because we are Indians, and we are very much still in the cultured category, where we don't bother who is wearing what and who is driving which car. That is up to limited up to the ultra modern society, who is which is living in the high cities. And I think this lockdown has shown to us what is the real culture. people have come out of their houses, they have been helping on the streets, despite the horrible danger of this corona disease. This shows that how cultured India is, and despite the differences in the communities of India, still you have seen that there is no violence erupted. This shows that India is the most cultured country in the world, and we should be proud of that. So Paul Wills, he studied a homogeneous kind of Christian people who are living there in a homogeneous kind of society of England, and the kind of have a different perception of society over there. We, being students of English literature, should only pay attention to what they said, what the theories are, and if needs be, we should use certain theories of theirs so that we can apply and can understand our culture. But that doesn't mean, because time is ripe enough and we are heading towards that period when people will try to understand our culture, and I think books will be written on our culture. Thank you very much. Namaskar.